When I first came into the role as a learning about the nonprofit world from K-12 up to 33 years, trying to understand how to align the resources, how to align not only just funding, but human resources. We are all about the same work. We all want to elevate, empower, and build our young people. And I sat in spaces many times being asked to come to various meetings. And I hear the same objectives, I hear the same mission, same vision. We want to empower young people. If we would take time to maybe just strategically look at each strategic plan and see how they align with United Way, how they might be aligning with the Community Foundation, how they align with Girls for Change. We have so many programs, so many nonprofit agencies. And if we all would just try to come in the same space, that networking and that partnership that we need to develop. If you're doing the same work or something similar to what I'm doing, then let's see if we can join our efforts together.
Hello everyone. Welcome to School After Hours podcast, where we talk about all things related to out of school time programming and education. I am your host, Jay Lee, and today I have a little bit of a treat for you. So this summer I had an opportunity to record a live show at the state conference for out of school time program providers, educators, all of the above. And this year was a little different because this year it was a traveling conference. So it's usually coordinated by VPOST, aka known as Virginia Partnership for Out of School Time. And they were able to travel around the state of Virginia and stop at different places to do professional development for school time programming and youth development providers, directors, all the wonderful people that are involved in this out of school time space, right? While they were here in Central Virginia, they stopped in Richmond, where I was able to go ahead and do my live show. So that's what we'll be looking at today. And I had lovely guests. Miss Sharon Burton was with us from Peter Paul Development Center, and Dr. Virginia Patterson was with us from Mentor BA. So we had a wonderful conversation of how out of school time programming has changed over time, and how their programs are adapting to their students' new needs, but also how they're addressing the new challenges that they're facing as well. So I hope you enjoyed our conversation, and let me know in the comments what you learned. All right, let's go ahead and get into it.
Hello, everyone. How are you? Can you hear me with this mic? Yes. Okay, great. I can't hear myself, but thank you for sticking through this with us. I know it's been a long day, and I greatly appreciate you being here for this segment. So I just want to say thank you. We'll also give yourselves a round of applause for all the participation that you've done, all the information that you've shared, but also just being the great individuals that you are as we go into this next school year with all the excitement that we are about to be greeted with, if you know what I mean. So for today's conversation, we are doing the wrap-up session, Connect to Reflect, and we have our wonderful guests here with us. We have Dr. Virginia Patterson here with us, the Executive Director of Mentor BA. Hi, ma'am. How are you? Can you say hello to people?
Very well. Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you all.
And then we have Miss Sharon Burton here with us, the Director of Education with Peter Paul Development Center.
Hello, everyone.
All right, so let's go ahead and get this conversation started, you all. So, lovely ladies, thank you for being here and participating in this conversation. Usually when I start off the show, I like to get a little bit more information about you, but also how you got involved in youth development. So go ahead and tell us your story, starting with Dr. Patterson. How did you get involved in youth development?
Wow. So I became involved in youth development 32 years ago, I would say. I was a former educator, K-12. I was a teacher, an administrator for 6 years as an assistant principal, a principal for 8 years, a district leader. I worked in 2 large school divisions, and I started as a volunteer at Mentor Virginia in March of 2020, right after COVID, building on their youth advisory program. And as a result, I transitioned to the executive director role when that position became available, because I still believe in our young people today. I still believe in investing in you, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And so mentoring is my passion. not only for youth, but for adults as well. So I transitioned into this role, and I've been in this role for 2.5 years.
All right, Ms. Burton, how did you get involved in youth development? Go ahead and tell us your story.
Well, when I retired as an elementary school educator back in 2007, as baby boomers, we really don't retire. We're always looking for something else to do, a different passion. And so I discovered Peter Paul, which is right in my neighborhood where I live, in the east end of Richmond City. And so I started out as the third grade teacher for the after school program. And from there, I became the math specialist, which is what I did for Richmond Public Schools. And then I became site coordinator, then education coordinator, and now I'm serving as the director of education. And so I've been with Peter Paul for 10 years.
Wow. You don't get those numbers anymore. Give you a snap. Give you a snap. Take care of snap. So for my next question for us is, being that you've seen youth development in so many capacities through the roles that you serve, how has the landscape of youth development and out of school time changed over time based on when you started working with youth to now?
Okay, I'll start with that question. So again, as I said, I started with youth development or after school program 10 years ago. But I even want to go back further than that because I want to talk about youth development or after school program as a parent. And so when I had a young child and taught in the school system 100 years ago, parents basically were looking for a place for their children to go when school was over. And so what was the priority for them? They wanted a safe haven. They wanted a place where they could send their children to work with adults who they felt that they could trust and that the children can interact with them. And then they were looking for homework help, and that was what I was looking for as a parent as well. Looking for someone who would help my child with homework, looking for someone, if they had tutors, they could do that. But the landscape has changed tremendously. And many of the opportunities that we are now providing in after-school programs, parents really did those kinds of activities after school or on the weekend for their children, such as looking for sports clubs. Well, now after-school programs provide those sports clubs. An opportunity for their children to be engaged in arts and crafts, or the visual and performing arts. And so you have different out-of-school time programs that specialize in those things. STEM programs, and we heard a great deal about that today. And a wonderful thing as the landscape changed, not just for our students, but for our parents. And it's an opportunity for parents to become engaged with the students. But also, we are including a lot of activities and programs that will address student social well-being, fostering emotional intelligence and interpersonal skills. And then, like Peter Hall, not only do we serve elementary students, but we have middle and high school students as well. And so we are looking for those programs that will help them tackle societal changes, implementing initiatives that are related to workforce. We heard all of that today. Letting them to discover what their talents are, what their gifts are, and how can that translate or transfer to a career. And then we're also including in our after-school programs those 21st century skills. How are we helping children to communicate, to work collaboratively? All of those wonderful things that we've heard over and over and over again. So it has changed. It has moved from a safe place for homework help to really giving students and looking at diverse students and all the things that they need. So after-school programs can decide which other programs they want to address.
How much you, Dr. Patterson?
I like to say, and within the landscape and all those things she named as it relates to out-of-school programs, mentoring plays a key component. When I was a building leader, I did that for 8 years. I had to build out my own mentoring program within my school, and it looked different from normal mentoring, which you would consider after school, because I pulled in 120 Fort Lee cadets to come in and work with my young people on guided reading instruction, in which we trained them to be able to be instructional professionals during the school day. They needed volunteer hours, and we also needed that support in the academic arena. So having said that, mentoring played a key role, but not only that, it was not just for academics. What took place thereafter is they became lunch buddies. They became our curriculum people whenever we needed them. They signed up on Genius and they came in every day, work with the same student 5 days a week. It can be done, it can be built down, but mentoring plays a key role. Another part of mentoring in the workplace, we currently work with training students, interns, and supervisors at nonprofits, corporates, companies, agencies, anyone who needs our service. So the important key piece to that is that we want mentors in place, but we want effective mentors in place. Mentors that can build a relationship, a trusting relationship that understands the young person and really wants to cultivate that mentoring relationship within your after-school programs. So that's one of the landscapes that has changed. And the difference right now is that we are struggling, it's a challenge, getting volunteers into place since COVID has happened. But we are being intentional and very deliberate. We'll come to your place to train individuals that can have volunteers. We'll help you try to find volunteers to work with your after-school programs, but also within those volunteer programs, become mentors. And what I always would say when we talk about family and parental engagement, engage your PTAs and your PTOs and ask them to find volunteers and become volunteers. They will be your biggest cheerleaders and your most consistent, I would say, partners.
I know that's right. I'll definitely go to the PTA and ask them. And they're more than willing to help in the process because they understand that if you're servicing kids, if you want the same things for them. So that is a great suggestion. And speaking of challenges, that brings me to my next question. What are some of the challenges, but also what are some of the opportunities you've seen over time in after-school programming? But after the pandemic, what are some of the challenges and what are some of the benefits that you see?
Okay, so I'm going to start with our alpha generation, and those are the children that we have now in our elementary and in 6th grade, 7th grade. Those are our babies who started, many of them started their education virtually. So many of them learned a great deal, some of them did not, but virtually you cannot interact. It limits your social interaction with each other. And so that's one of the challenges that we see. And so what they do to become social, they turn to devices and they turn to social media platforms. Unfortunately, that is also where we have to deal with the cyberbullying as well. So what are the opportunities for that? We saw a great exercise today, and that was using music and how to get them to interact and collaborate with each other through music. We also know that they're getting ready to go back to school, and many of the schools are banning cell phones. And particularly for our teenagers, it's going to be a little bit of withdrawal there. We recognize that. So as a youth development program, as an out-of-school time program, we have to decide, will we give them time to decompress with their cell phones and reconnect, or ban it totally? That is the discussion that we're having at Peter Paul. And then what kinds of filters do you put in place to ensure that it becomes healthy? The other thing that we are doing to address the social part is the social emotional learning that is incorporated in our program, and then more and more community circles that we are using when they first come in as well.
Nice. And when it comes to mentoring, what are some of the challenges that you've seen, but also what are some of the opportunities you've seen as well?
When we talked about volunteerism, but what I heard a lot about today was the emphasis on equity without using the word, I noticed. So we talked about diversity and inclusion, but when we are talking about young people, we're talking about all kids. We're talking about diverse perspectives, we're talking about diverse, what they look like, race, gender, all of that is involved. But how do you teach every kid every day? How do you mentor every kid every day? They all are coming with some differences. We all have differences, so we're very much aware of that. But how do you meet them where they are? I heard a lot of that at the table today. But how do you do that? Well, you do that by including them. You do that by making sure they feel like they belong up on a rider. We made those preparations in advance. So if you're in the out-of-school program, you have those objectives placed on the board. The young person when they arrive, everyone sees the same thing. So it doesn't look like if it's me, I'm being treated differently. Because I can see the objectives, I actually know how the afternoon will unfold, and I can follow it the same way that my peer can follow it. So it's very important that what we lay out in the after-school programs is one of consistency, is one of transparency, and also one of cultivating relationships. Get to know the young people you're working with. Know them by names. Know the names they like to be called. Know their friends. Know their families. And that will take you a long way with the families, but also with the kids, because now you have that connection. Now they understand what you want from them, but more importantly, they will meet you wherever you are and try to do the best that they can for you. So it's about that relationship, connecting with the kid, growing the kid, and just loving on our kids.
My next question for you is, how can we as programs and leaders work together when it comes to collaboration and also being intentional about the impact that we want to have when it comes to youth, families, and communities?
I'll start with that one. My experience when I first came into the role as learning about the nonprofit world from K-12 up to 33 years, trying to understand how to align the resources, how to align not only just funding, but human resources. We are all about the same work. We all want to elevate, empower, and build our young people. And I sat in spaces many times being asked to come to various meetings. And I hear the same objectives, I hear the same mission, same vision. We want to empower young people. If we would take time to maybe just strategically look at each, strategic plan. Every one of us probably have our own plans, and see how they align with United Way, how they might be aligning with the Community Foundation, how they align with Girls for Change. We have so many programs, so many nonprofit agencies, and if we all would just try to come in the same space, host some conveners, meetings. I know United Way is doing that currently. I know the Community Foundation is doing that. And then invite all of us in the same spaces. And then that networking and that partnership that we need to develop. If you're doing the same work or something similar to what I'm doing, then let's see if we can join our efforts together. We don't need to hold 4 and 5 summits. We can have 3 summits or 1 summit and come together. So I think if we start thinking in terms of how to align resources, but not only just funding, but human resources. And I think we will get the most out of what we're trying to do as far as our organizations are concerned, but more importantly, how we can empower the youth, because we all are tapping into volunteers. And what I have found is that there are several volunteers are volunteering, maybe in Henrico County. They're also volunteering in Richmond City Public Schools. So we're spreading these individuals very thin. They're out here 5 days a week. I'm hearing it constantly. They want to be a wealth of support. Sororities, fraternities, all of these individuals want to be there for our kids. But we have to figure out how to align our efforts.
In addition to that, we are so fortunate in the Richmond area to have partners who are really willing to support us. At Peter Paul, we're able to work with our museums who offer scholarships to our students because they have camps. They have after-school camps, they have summer camps. Right now, we are winding down our summer camp, and we have what I call a camp within the camp. So the Virginia Science Museum has a camp. They offer Peter Paul scholarships. These are programs where parents generally have to pay, and they can be quite expensive, but they may give us 5 seats a week, and based on the grades and the offerings, and so our children can participate. So what does Peter Paul do for those students? We provide the transportation for them to get there. We partner with VCU, Mary and Francis Youth Center. We've been doing that for years. They talked about the camps that they had this summer. Our students have participated in each and every one of those camps, full-day camps. Lewis Enter Botanical Garden, they have camps. And we've heard from Next Up today. Next Up will fund smaller nonprofits. So our teams were able to participate in a co-op program with the Boys and Girls Teen Center. And so they had Next Up funded 2 smaller organizations, Real Girls Summer Program and Street Smart, that's the name of it, Street Smart over safety. And our students will go there all day for 4 weeks. And so what was our responsibility in that? Peter Paul provided transportation, they provided facility, and Boys and Girls Team will do the same thing. And so we've learned that we can't do everything for everyone, and we have to reach out and not compete with each other, but how do we join together to help our children? And there are enough children to go around.
That is right.
There are enough children to go around, and that's how we do it, and we look forward to that.
Awesome. And last question for you all. Based on all the information that we received today, a lot of pouring, a lot of sharing, what are some of the conversations we need to continue to have? Not just with our leaders, our community leaders, those that are making policies and those that are not. What conversations do we need to continue to have about our youth and our profession?
So I think we need to continue to join forces with VPOST and supporting them and getting the funding that they got. $5 million, is that what I heard? Yes.
That is no small feat.
That is no, exactly. And working with them to get the government to change. So for example, 21st Century, when it first started out, it was school-based grants, and now they are, what I heard today, community-based grants. And so again, joining with VPOST and VCU Youth Development Network and continuing to have those kinds of conversations to see how we can support all the wonderful programs that we have.
And I would also collect with them, however, also work with your legislative bodies in the branches of government. Start with your local school boards, right where you are, in whatever locality you are in. And then teach the advocacy skills to some young people to have them actually engage in conversations with their legislator, their representative, their delegate. These individuals will come out, but they will also allow them to spend time in their space. And if you go right to the LGIS site, you can sign up. You can also participate and engage in a letter writing campaign based on things that are going on within your community that you want to see change or shift. And I will submit that you become engaged and involved, not just during election time right now, but throughout the year. There's always various, I would say, elections going on, and we missed that opportunity because things really happen in our communities and at the ground level. It happened at the federal level, on the state level. But if you know what's going on in your community, you can make that things happen and change in your community, then I would strongly encourage you to do so.
Well, thank you ladies so much for your time. I greatly appreciate you.
Well, everyone, that brings us to the end of our show. If you liked what you heard and you enjoyed our conversation, make sure that you're following us on YouTube, but also hit that like button so we know what you are enjoying. You can also find us on other podcast platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts if you want to listen to our audio version as well. To get more behind the scenes stuff, make sure that you're following us on our social media accounts, Instagram and Facebook at School After Hours. Well, that's all I have for today. In the words of Mr. Arthur Ashe, start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. Until next time, y'all. Bye-bye.